Hey guys, hope you're doing well. This will be a little bit longer comment. I have a lot to go over with you. So the first thing is I just finished grading a couple hours ago your evidence tables, and overall you guys did a great job. A few requests that I have that'll make it easier to grade your tables. The first request is to please number your citations. If your citations are not numbered, then I start trying to quickly number them, and it's very easy for me to miscount and then deduct points because I think you didn't complete the assignment. So please don't put me in that situation. Go ahead and do the numbering for me. The second thing is please attach what you've already completed, what your new stuff is to what you've already completed. In other words, last week you had 1 through 12. This week you had 13 through 24. I wanted to see 1 through 24 in your submission. And then next week, you're going to submit all 36. So I want to see 1 through 36 next week. So if you could do that for me, that would be great. The other thing about the evidence tables that I wanted to bring to your attention was to make sure that you answer all the questions. So next week, every single yellow question in your evidence table needs to have at least 1 citation. As long as you have at least 1 citation for every single section, then you're okay. You're good to go. Okay? But please make sure that all the questions are answered. Lastly, some folks have asked, can the citations in the evidence table, the evidence table, move over to the intervention table? And the answer is absolutely. In fact, I would expect you to do just that because your evidence citations, some of them are about interventions, right? So in your intervention table, you have a row for each intervention and there's a place for citations. And so I would expect you to paste all of the relevant citations for that intervention in that cell. If you have questions about that, reach out to Elizabeth or me. We're happy to answer that for you. Okay, so that's all of your tables. The really exciting thing is that you guys are going to be done with tables in about 2 weeks. So that's nice. That's kind of a milestone. When you turn in that intervention table, you're done with all the tables for the semester. So that's pretty cool, right? It's kind of like a benchmark. And you're almost there. So hang in there. Some folks have asked questions about papers, and they're really good questions. And so I want to share some comments with you. The first question that has been asked had to do with, can we submit papers at different times than what they're scheduled? In other words, could I submit TTM when SET is due or vice versa, for example, right? My preference is no. It makes it more difficult for us as graders. So when we go to grade, like we're grading all the social cognitive theory papers, or we're grading all the prototype willingness model papers, or whatever it is, right? We're grading them together, and we get in sort of a mindset of these are the papers that we're looking at, and this is the theory that we're looking at. And it makes it easier for us to grade and get feedback to you in a more efficient way. If we're having to jump from one theory to the next, it's just we're shifting our thinking a little bit, and it slows us down. And so please don't do that. Please turn in your SCT when the SCT is due, turn in your TTM when the TTM is due, for example. The next question is, some folks have asked for some of these theories, like SCT and TTM, we use those as examples again, where there's a lot of constructs, do we have to provide a definition and example for all of them? And the answer is yes. So if you are doing TTM, for example, we're going to get to that in a few weeks, but there are stages and there are processes, and the expectation is that you would provide a definition and an example for all. Same with SCT. You'll need a definition and an example for all. I recognize that Bandura only published a few in his articles, his seminal article, but over time, others have been added. And one of the things that's a little challenging about SCT, and we'll talk about this when we get to that theory, is depending on what book you read or article you read, you're going to see different constructs. For the purposes of our class, there is a construct table in the 5th edition of Glands, and we are going to use that construct table. So you'll be expected to define all the constructs and provide an example for every construct listed in that table. And we can talk more about that when we're in class together if you have questions about it. The next thing folks have asked is, how do we handle multiple theories in our papers? And where this came up is Evelyn, for example. Evelyn is working on, her topic is sexual and gender minority women and contraceptive use. It's an important topic, and anyone who works in sexual and gender minority health will quickly realize that minority stress theory is a dominant theory that is used for all SGM research. It's difficult to write a SGM paper without at least making inferences to the minority stress theory. Briefly, the theory suggests that stress resulting from stigma at multiple levels results in poor health outcomes. It's a little more to it than that, but that's the gist. And so it's difficult to not talk about sexual and gender minority health without talking about that theory. However, while you can certainly bring in citations around the impact of stress, and what I don't want you to do is to talk about minority stress theory and say prototype willingness, for example. Don't bring in two theories into this class to your paper. It introduces a level of complexity that I don't want you to deal with this semester. Because what's going to happen is that if you start bringing in two theories or more, you are going to have to define all the constructs for both theories. You're going to have to give examples of all those constructs, and then you're going to have to articulate for me how both theories are complementary. And if you're using only aspects of certain theories, you're going to have to explain to me which aspects you're using, which aspects you're not, provide a justification. And essentially, at that point, what you're doing is creating an entirely new model specific to your population and behavior, and you're going to have to justify that and support all of it with citations. And that's too much, guys. Don't do that, please. Don't do that this semester. Again, this semester this is like the KISS class, right? It's keep it simple. And so for the purposes of this class, please only write about that one theory, the one that you're assigned to write on. However, using Evelyn as an example, it is likely that one of the barriers that she might talk about, for example, is stigma, right? And she might talk about that, or she might talk about stigma as an environmental constraint, or however she wants to talk about it. But I would encourage you to frame it within the language of the existing theories, or talk about how, when you get to your limitation section, perhaps how it's not discussed in your theory adequately, without necessarily mentioning minority stress theory explicitly. There's a way of doing that, and it's an art of doing that, but I've done that in my papers before when I am writing about sexual and gender minority health. You can talk about the ideas that are represented in a new theory without bringing that theory in. And so if you have questions about that, again, reach out to Elizabeth or me. We're happy to talk it through with you. But that's my recommendation. And I felt it would come up for others, and so that's why I brought it up. Evelyn, thanks for letting me use you as an example. Okay, couple of more things. Initially, when we started this class, I asked you guys to copy me on all your emails to Elizabeth. Turns out that was a mistake. There are way too many emails, and my email is getting clogged up with back and forth messages. So please stop copying me on emails, effective immediately. Just email Elizabeth and y'all work it out. If for some reason you need to include me in an email, that's fine. But if you're scheduling time to meet with Elizabeth, I don't need to know about it. Initially, I wanted to, but it's just too much. And really, all I do is just glance at the email and delete it. So it's between the two of y'all. Y'all work it out. If Elizabeth needs to bring me into the communication, she will. Or if you think you need to, then that's fine, of course. But otherwise, please drop it. My email inbox is just getting clogged, and it's making it difficult to keep up with. Okay, the next thing is I want to talk about when assignments are due. Just a bit reminder on that. And so I'm going to pull in your syllabus here. just as a reminder for you guys. So you may recall on your syllabus on page 5, there is this handy dandy table of all of your assignments and when they're due. In this class, all assignments are due at 8:50 a.m. on Monday morning. That's 10 minutes before the start of our class. And they're always due on the weeks listed here. So for example, you had an evidence table due in weeks 4 and 5. Your next one is due in week 6, which is this coming Monday at 8:50 a.m. Your intervention table is due in week 7, again on that Monday at 8:50 a.m. So this is a nice little cheat sheet of when everything is due. It's on page 5 of your syllabus. The next thing I want to show you is another way of looking at it. If you don't like that little table, you can follow along here in the weekly course readings. So again, everything is due on Monday at 8:50 a.m. and you can see the week something is due with the date listed and what is due. So for example, if we come to week 6, in week 6, we will see that on October the 2nd, by 8:50 a.m., you need to have turned in your last set of evidence tables, completed the discussion board, and your ungraded quiz. So that's how you read this to figure out when things are due. So hopefully that'll keep you from missing any deadlines. The next thing I want to show you is the instructions. And the instructions for every assignment are in your syllabus. They are detailed in your syllabus right here. And there are instructions for PhDs as well as for DRPH for many of the assignments. Please make sure you pay attention to the instructions. We have a lot of conversations in class, but at the end of the day, I'm going to grade you on how well you respond to these instructions. So let's look, for example, at the theory papers, right? So as a reminder, the theory papers are 1,500 words. They're double-spaced. Your tables do not need to be double-spaced. Tables and references do not count towards your word count, okay? My recommendation is that you create a heading, a subheading, that corresponds with each of these bullets. And that'll make it easy for us to grade. So potentially, if you were to follow my advice, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 subheadings in your paper. So something to consider. If you wanted to combine some of those subheadings, that's fine, as long as it's clear which ones you're combining so that it's easy for us to grade it and find the information we need. Please pay attention to the instructions when you are writing your paper. So for example, when you say comments on whether you would use the theory to inform your research, we ask you to discuss at least 3 strengths and weaknesses, while you may comment on measurement, to make sure that you're also talking about intervention development, right? So that's an example of where you need to pay attention and make sure that you are following the instructions carefully. I would refer you back to the week 3 lecture where we spent quite a bit of time going over every assignment and how to complete it so that you get an A in the course. If you have any questions about that, definitely please reach out to Elizabeth or myself. As a reminder, my recommendation is to turn in 3 documents. The first is to turn in your peer-reviewed response. So that looks like the bulleted or bold comments from peer review, and then your response under each bullet or bolded comment. The second document would be a track changes of your paper, in which I'm able to see how you responded to each of those peer review comments. And then the third one is a clean version that does not have any track changes. It's your clean final version, and that's the version that you want Elizabeth or me to grade. If you have any questions about that, please do reach out. But it's important that you follow these directions carefully and recognize that the instructions for every assignment are included in the syllabus. Okay, I think that is everything that I wanted to share with you. I'm double checking my notes really quick. Yep, that's everything, guys. All right, so thank you so much, and you guys have a great day. I'll see you next week.